Hi, and welcome to Ward 13 with John Hopwood. My co-host today is Mikey Martineau.
Thank you for the last minute notice for coming in.
Yes, there was last minute notice. I've been having a lot of problems with last minute notices. And we hope that Miriam Banish is going to join us, and we're going to talk about special education. And we have another guest is Gonzo, Mike Gonzales, who is the one with the glasses, not the one screeching into our microphone.
Hello, John. Hello, Michael.
Hi, Gonzo.
Well, until
Very important television show today.
right, but Miriam's not here right now, and my cell phone's dead. And so, why don't we talk a little about politics? Brendan, could you run the video I sent you very late today?
I'm Kevin
That
Kavanaugh,
is
and I'm running for mayor of Manchester because I love this city. I went to public schools here. My wife Karen and I raised our 3 kids here and sent them to public schools in Manchester. I've coached sports throughout this city. Manchester and the community have given me so much. Teachers, coaches, friends have shaped me into the person I am today. I want to give back to Manchester. It has given me my family so much and build on the progress we've made over the past few years and face tough challenges together. In my lifetime of service to this community, I've had 3 top priorities: education, public safety, and housing. And as mayor, I'll continue to work on those 3 priorities. Please join us at kevin4mht.com.
So, some rather big news. Ward 1 Alderman Kevin Kavanaugh, who has spent six years in the state senate, has announced that he's running for mayor of Manchester, New Hampshire. 2 weeks ago, I had Ross Terrio, the former alderman from Ward 7, on the show, and we talked about the possibility of Kevin running for mayor. And it was our opinion that if Kevin jumps in, he immediately is the front runner. Hey, I'm opening the discussion. Gonzo, what do you think about the mayor's race?
I heard from a little birdie that our next mayor will be Will Stewart.
Is that because you support Will Stewart?
That's just what I heard. I don't support him. I would actually vote for Kavanaugh if I had to pick, because, it's a nonpartisan race, but let's be honest, it's a partisan race. And I lie on the, the right side of the middle.
You and I are Democrats.
Yeah, so I would end up leaning that way, and I like what he's done I live in Ward 1. He's been very serviceable, and I would endorse him. In fact, I would like to endorse, to his detriment probably, the current alderman of Ward 1, Kavanaugh, for mayor.
Well, I'd like to say I think that before Kevin jumped in, that June Triciani would be the front runner. Although Will Stewart would be a fine mayor, and I would vote for him if he was, frankly, he would be my number 3 candidate.
Is he in the race?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so who's officially in the race?
Will Stewart has announced. He was the first to announce. Then June announced.
Oh.
They announced the same week. And it was known that both June and Will would run.
Wow, so this puts a whole different wrench in June's plan.
Because June
This hurts
also
her.
is from Ward 1.
This will hurt her, if anyone.
That's quite probably true, right?
Yeah.
But I would think that, and then Kevin, there was news that the unions, the public service employee unions, were powerful, and they're powerful in the Democrats, and I support the public service unions. I was once a union member, UAW, and that I don't think they were enthusiastic for either Will Stewart or June. Will has been associated with the Chamber of Commerce, which traditionally is associated with, Republican businessmen, and
So
and according to Joe Kelly Lavasser, who's very good at handicapping races, that the unions wanted Kevin Kavanaugh. They wanted a candidate, frankly, that they know and could trust. June is an excellent person, but she's only in her first term. She's only been one term so far.
But she's hot as an oven right now.
She is, but now we've got any Democratic candidate really needs the unions behind them. I mean, they are potent. They're a potent voting bloc. They're a potent bloc of activists.
So the bird I heard from Will Stewart, who I heard that's going to be the guy, is a very, very important, highly respected bird, I would say.
And
A former alderman, we'll just put it that way.
And who said that? What did they say?
That Will Stewart will be the next mayor.
Well, who would Will Stewart be? I would have him as number 3. But then we have a Republican candidate.
Jay Ruiz.
Yes. Tell us about Jay Ruiz, which is not the way you pronounce his name, by the way, because we had Russ Terrio on, and he properly pronounced the name because, it's Portuguese name, because he's Brazilian American, I believe. I have made this poster because I know nothing about Jay. We'll call him Jay Ruiz. He's according to Rich Gerard, who's no slouch at political handicapping either. He's only lived in the city for 18 months. That he was a chief of staff sometime with Ginta in Washington. I'm not sure in Manchester, but I've never seen this person before they started talking about him this year. Never seen him in the 10 years I've covered local politics ever at a meeting of either the board of mayor and aldermen, at the school board, or any committee, and I've never seen him take a single position in politics. They say that Kelly Ayotte is planning on running for governor, and that this is part of Kelly Ayotte machine.
She's tied into that.
So if anybody's got any information about this guy, I have a Facebook site. You can contact me because I don't know anything about this person. But he's going to have in excess of. He's already raised $100,000.
I'm sure he has, and if he's tied into the Ayotte machine, then there you go.
Right.
Mikey, do you know anything about this guy?
Basically, all I know is what John Hawley told us. He was a chief of staff under Ginta at some point down in D.C. But yeah, it's kind of like the Matt Mallard situation.
Don't use our city as a stepping stone for your political career.
Marion, you're here. Now, Marion, I have dyslexia, so I mispronounce your name every way, and I want to call you Marion. But tell me what your name is after 5,000 times.
Miriam.
Miriam. I want you to be made Marion.
It rhymes with delirium.
And delirium, I'll remember that.
Miriam Delirium, yes. My older sister wrote a poem for me for my birthday, and delirium was one of the rhyming words that she figured out.
Okay, can we go back to...
Sorry.
Can we go back to a neutral background? But Miriam Delirium, because when you have dyslexia, you really have to use they call them mnemonic devices or things. Something like the brothers Karamazov. I always call them Karamazov, and then I have to have the 4 brothers getting into a car because I just butcher stuff. One of the problems I had with French, I grew up in a French-speaking neighborhood. You'd think that I would be able, and I took French for 6 years, but it's just, French already, T-R-O-I-S, toi. How do you get that? But I used to flip things around because we're going to go eat. By the way, I've already endorsed Kevin Kavanaugh for mayor because when Bill Cashin put a petition in back in 2017 to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen asking for a conduct board to investigate what apparently was a cover-up of a high school rape by then Mayor Gonzales. Kevin Kavanaugh and Danny O'Neill were the only 2 people that voted for that. I wrote the petition for Bill. Gonzales sued us for defamation, which kept me from talking during the 2017 race that was won by Joyce Craig. And Kevin Kavanaugh, he had the guts and he had the courage to stand up to Gonzales, who we all understand was using everything he could to pressure everybody to vote against that.
There were rumors he would run. It's not happening though.
He could never get elected.
Did you hear that rumor though?
Oh yeah, okay. I actually wrote about it. But Kevin Kavanaugh has courage. He's also been in city government. He knows how it works.
He knows the deal, and he's in the biggest turnout for voters too. So
Oh, yeah, he is.
Ward 1, you win Ward 1, you're on your way.
Right, but June is in Ward 1 too, also.
She's at large,
And
correct?
yeah.
Yeah, so I forgot about June. She's a hot topic too, so she
Right.
might as well strike while the iron's hot. It's
No,
good
I
for
think
her.
that the most logical thing for June would be to either run for Ward 1 alderman, but as people say, anybody that's going to run for office it's an ego. Late Bill Cashin, whose portrait is in the chambers, the alderman, always said you aren't going to run if you don't have an ego. And to be mayor, because they always said that Danny, they used to say about Bill Cashin, every 2 years they say he's going to run for mayor, but he never did.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the most powerful man in politics at the time. He was the chairman of the board. And, then they would say the same thing about Danny O'Neill. And there were rumors that Danny O'Neill was going to run for mayor. But, it's more logical that he goes back and run for alderman at large. I think he and Joe Lavassa will easily win those seats.
Well, no one gave June Trisciani a chance to win alderman at large either. Like,
Right.
she was overshooting there at
And
first.
she did.
And she won. She beat
Oh,
out. Ian Goonan was supposed to win. Like, he was running hard.
Dan Goonan.
Yeah, and then she beat him. So
Well, she
why
didn't
not
beat-
run for mayor? There's no other bigger
Well,
office,
before Kevin Kavanaugh got in, I would say that would be a smart decision. But now that Kavanaugh is in,
So you think Kavanaugh would beat her in a Ward 1
Oh, yeah.
election? Even though she won at large?
yes, yeah.
So maybe winning at large would make her chances at winning an overall vote for mayor even better for her, because that's basically what it is. It's the whole city voting for at
Yeah,
large.
but she's only a one-term person. But she is from the Trisciani family, and once again, Bill Cashin, who knew more about politics than anybody I've ever known, and
Trisciani
said that family is critical
Absolutely.
to winning.
And Trisciani, my old coach Trisciani, will
Right.
be the head coach of West this year. Football.
Right.
So there's a little more pull.
Coaching is there's
names
so many
everything.
people that are in politics that were coaches, including Ted Gatzis.
Mhm.
He was a coach of kids teams.
Yes, Central.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's important. But I think that June and Will, who's from 2, which is almost Ward 1, that's the north end. That's the, as my aunt would call, the rich bitch section of Manchester.
Yes, the bougie, the walk your kids and wave to everybody. Everybody waves in Ward 1.
They might cannibalize each other's support.
That's the problem. That's the problem, and I'm sure June's not very appreciative of this new,
Right.
new development.
But as one active alderman said, let them fight it out. That's politics, right?
Hmm.
But, yeah. But,
It's fun though, isn't it? Coming down to it again. It's too bad we're not having our incumbent, because I do like
I love Joyce. Yeah.
her a lot. But hey, man, whatever. She gotta live her life.
I saw Mayor Craig on Saturday night, actually,
Where did you see Mayor Craig?
at the Chaos and Kindness Second Chance Prom.
Okay. And can you say that again? Because the Second Chance Prom?
Yeah, so
What is that?
Chaos and Kindness and Recycle Percussion put on a Second Chance Prom for disabled adults. So
Oh,
I was able to attend with my girlfriend, and we had a lovely time, and I got to run into the mayor. So
Did you get her a corset?
corset? A
What do you call it?
corsage.
Of course not.
A
flower.
corset is something I wear for my back,
Yeah, yeah,
except
yeah,
I've gotten
yeah.
too fat. I can't get it around me.
Yeah. So it was like a prom, Mikey.
yeah,
That's awesome.
Okay.
And you did get her corsage. I saw the picture.
yes, yes.
Good man. Good man.
And Mikey, you've been on my show. I interviewed you, and you have a disability.
Yes, I do.
And
What?
one of the reasons we were have Miriam is here. Great to have you back, Miriam. Delirious Marius. I have dyslexia. They didn't find out I had dyslexia until I was in the Army at the Defense Language Institute and studying Russian, and I'm flipping the letters around, and it's another alphabet. So what they could tell easily, but so I had no idea I had dyslexia, But you are a paraprofessional in Bedford.
I am.
Why don't you tell the folks about what a paraprofessional does?
Okay, a paraprofessional is somebody who supports kids in the classroom who need that. It's actually a legal. The IEP is a legal document. It's an individualized education program. So each kid who needs one has their very own. And if a child needs my help, it's in there that they need one-on-one or they need a shared para to support them so that they can access the curriculum.
And that is under federal law that a child with special needs, those needs have to be met.
Right.
And what is special education?
Oh boy. It's just to help kids who need beyond what the classroom teacher, I guess, can provide, to sort of bring them to a point to help them access the curriculum as well as the other kids, I guess. I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but that's kind of what it is. It's to help kids be able to be successful in school.
Now, it's physical and mental disabilities.
Any kind of disability, pretty much, yep.
Right. And does having paraprofessionals mean that the child can be mainstreamed and be taught in the class
Very
with
often.
non-special needs kids?
Oh, yes, yeah. I mean, that is the goal, and I think most of the kids end up being in the regular classroom most of the time.
Mikey, anything?
Yeah. I am still a special needs kid. I had an IEP all throughout. I had like one period a day resource room in high school at Central, and then the rest of the time I was mainstream. So I had awesome paras, awesome resource room teachers, and the IEP helped me get through high school and graduate with honors. So I'm happy about that.
What is a resource room, Mikey?
Resource room is basically an additional an additional class you could take that would help you with your homework and whatnot. So basically same thing as a study hall, but you would actually get help and whatnot.
Oh, okay. It wasn't just one. We send the kids over the study hall, and it was actually hands-on help.
Yeah, hands-on help. Yes.
Now you're a paraprofessional, and I know you have confidentiality and all that. Do they have resource rooms in Bedford?
Yes. Yep. There will be a case manager who is the special ed teacher, and then the special ed teacher is kind of figuring out what the kids need, looking at the IEP. Also, very often they will help to write the next IEP and supervising the paraprofessionals, and then the paraprofessionals implement what the special ed teacher has said that they need to do.
So special ed teachers is something that didn't exist in the 60s and 70s when I was going through public school. That is its own discipline.
Yes.
And does a teacher get educated? Does a person that wants to be a teacher get educated, in the undergraduate? Is it a specialty, or do you go for a master's degree, or does it just develop? Are they their own class of teachers?
I think they are.
Are they
their own
hired
class.
that
Yes, yes, they are.
way? Okay, it's not like I'm
and
an
I don't know
English-
I don't know if they have to have a master's. I think very often they do get a master's
I think
because
like
it's a lot more complicated than like somebody who teaches just like history or
Yeah.
writing or whatever other typical class. The general education curriculum. It's much more complicated than that.
Now, what types of paraprofessionals are there?
Well, there's some that are in special education, but then there are other paraprofessionals that do things like supervise lunch and recess. And then there's a couple of different types of paraprofessionals. I work in intensive needs, so that's going to be kind of a I don't know how to describe it. So it's kind of like there's an academic a paraprofessional and they go to the classroom with the child and they may take notes for the child.
Oh, so they are in the classroom with the child.
It depends on the student. Sometimes they don't need a para right next to them, and sometimes they do.
Yeah.
Sometimes the paraprofessional works with them in the resource room, I think, exclusively, but other times the paraprofessional is next to them or just in the same room. And usually if we're in the same room, we'll help any of the kids who need it.
Now, you said you were extensive needs? Is that-
Intensive.
Intensive
needs. And so
What does intensive needs mean? Are you dealing with physically disabled?
sometimes it may be, there may be medical needs, there may be self-care needs, there may be a different curriculum need. Sometimes they'll have a modified curriculum instead of following the general education curriculum. There will be a modified curriculum, and I don't know how to explain that.
They have to modify the curriculum to the ability
needs
of the
student.
child.
Right,
The needs. yeah.
right. So
So needs and ability would be similar.
I think so, yeah.
Because, your ability, you have needs that are impacted by your abilities.
Right.
So if you address the needs, the idea would be to improve the ability of the child, the student.
I think what she's saying is there's special needs, and then there's a higher
It's a pyramid.
ramped up.
Yeah.
Ramped
Right,
up.
there's more.
There's
There's just
kids
more
that need.
needs.
There's kids that are more needy.
Right, the
Needing
ones-
special treatment. Like, for instance, autism is on a spectrum.
Right.
Then there's, like, for instance, my son is autistic. I have a 3-year-old autistic son. And the school he goes to is all autism. But some of the kids there are flicking the lights and spinning around all day long.
Right.
They're extra impacted by autism. Some kids are a little bit. Some kids are in the middle. The ones that are really intensively impacted, I feel like, would be the ones you deal with, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so extra.
I am going to go and close the
Does that
door.
make sense?
But tell us, what is autism? Because, I am a non-parent.
Well, I
And I've heard of autism, but tell us about autism.
could say I never heard of autism before until I had a son that was autistic. And I used to make jokes about being artistic, not autistic. I used to make insensitive jokes, and then when your son turns 1 year old, things just start not developing anymore. Like, things just go, he's a little quirky, or things are just, you can tell something's off. So then you go, get a second opinion, and then, like, you're right. So with autism, they say every kid's different, every case is different. However, to be classified as autism, you got to check the same 8 boxes to get there. So it's a weird thing. Getting your kid certified for autism is important because you can get early treatment,
Early help.
which is so huge. Seeing my son Micah go to his school at 3 with 11-year-olds who haven't had the help, it's night and day. They have to be wheeled in by, it almost looks like bouncers, bringing them in and like watching around, make sure they don't hit somebody. Like, the parents of this person didn't address it early enough. So we're teaching him now, in my case, how to deal with adversity quickly.
Are you talking about your own
My
situation?
own kid, yeah.
Okay.
Which is what they tell you. In New Hampshire, you can have someone come to your house up until 2 years old, which is so weird that they don't go above that. They really should extend it to 4. But after 2, you can go to special schools like Ready, Set, Connect, which is downtown, where the old St. Joe's school was.
Oh, okay.
So drop him off, and he's in a class with kids similar to his level of the spectrum. They have life developments. They kind of split them up a little bit for safety reasons, and it's all one-on-one treatment. So if a teacher calls out of Ready, Set, Connect, we'll get a call saying it's Micah's turn to take the day off because we go down the list. It has to be one-on-one at that
Okay.
level. Then they also do, when our whole goal is to get him into kindergarten at 5, to be like Mikey was, to get mainstreamed with all the other kids his age, and then have someone like Miriam on the side if he were to kind of, need a little. The teacher would be there, keeping an eye on him, but not like, not embarrassingly, but like kind of shadowing.
Right.
And if you can tell, you'd be like, you can come over and help.
Right.
Right? You don't want to make it obvious because the kids are insensitive these days.
Right.
So that's my biggest
And the
worry.
harder,
also.
and the older they get, the harder it is for them
Right.
to have a para. It depends on the children.
They
Some of
just
them are
wanna be
not that
fitting in.
aware.
Am I wrong, Mike? You just wanted to be one of the guys.
Yeah,
Right.
you know what, like I remember back in elementary school at Smithfield, I was having I was seeing a speech pathologist, I think. Yes, I was having OT as well. And then as I went through school, it got less and less, but I still had the resources there to help me to get my way
Right.
throughout all the public school system here in Manchester, and then to be able to graduate and move on. And then when you get to college, it's a totally different situation, because now it's not required. You have to request it. So that's one thing I didn't take care of in college, but that's my fault. So it is what it is.
Like the whole goal is to get him, at least Michelle and I, his mother and me, our goal is to kind of just get him to the level of not being made fun of almost. I don't want to say that insensitively, but that's like, to get him to kind of like not fit in, because I don't really care if he fits
Right.
in.
Just to cope. I think
Just to be
coping
able to put his shoes on and go and walk down the stairs with the guys and with the kids, and like, he's gonna be quirky. There's nothing you can do about that. He already is. He sings his words. And he lives in a musical. It's hilarious.
My son was like that too.
But
my son has autism too. Now he has a job. He doesn't have anybody that has to shadow him in the job. He has a job coach that he can consult if he has a
Right.
problem. But he works at Walmart and he's just doing his job. But we went through the same thing where he did an early childhood education thing. It was a school district. We were in Maryland at the time, and it was just kind of to get him so that he would be able to start kindergarten. And he did start kindergarten in that program, and then went on to first grade, sort of with his peers.
a lot of parents will deny the fact that their child is autistic too.
Yes, I know about that.
And
yeah.
then when they go into the school program at 6 years old, first grade, that's when the S storm hits. That's when the reality, like, you kind of did your kid a little bit wrong there by not just addressing it. Suck it up, deal with it, and get the kid help. So that way, when he does come into first grade, he's not going to be the kid who picks his nose and gets made fun of. You know what I mean? Like, there's certain things, they literally will focus on that for a month. Like, there's certain things, like, I'm not autistic, so I can't speak on his behalf, but I see it every day, and I see his inability to communicate. So having someone like
communicate
Miriam,
with you, or as a parent, or communicate with peers.
Communicate with anybody.
Really?
the brain's not firing off. Like, I'm saying words as they come to my brain. He'll just sit there and be like, that's why he sings. Like, if he wants me to go away, he'll be like, rain, rain, go away. It's like what kind of clicks. If he's hungry, he'll sing happy birthday because he knows cake. Like, that's his go-to.
Associations.
So then what you do as a parent, and even as a speech therapist, I've noticed is private speech, you kind of run with that. You just go with what works. Because really, what is speech? It's communicating. As long as he's communicating what he needs. And now he has a little sister that's kind of passing him.
Right.
And she's only one. And she's doing things, but he's being pushed. He's not being like, okay, complacent with what's working. Now that he's seeing her talk and get what she wants. And he's like, this is a lot easier this way. So that, I am blessed with that situation. But parents that don't get them into early intervention for their own pride, which I had a hard time dealing with it for a year or so. But now I'm all in, I'll wear the hat, I'll do whatever. But it was I realized my kid's not going to play for the Yankees. I deal with that now.
Well, people of my generation, I'm a late baby boomer. You're younger than I am.
I'm still just barely a boomer.
Yeah.
Late boomer. Yeah.
First off, because that is a diagnosis that none of us heard of. It might have existed before, but it didn't become a thing till the 1980s. That people brought up as Americans to question things, particularly in the times we came up. I grew up watching the Vietnam War on television, and coming home from high school and watching the Watergate hearings. You just figure, a lot of people figured, oh, this is just BS. At the time, we're talking about at the beginning.
People are still saying that this
Right.
is not real, and they
Yes.
said that. They say that about
funny.
ADHD. They say that about autism at certain levels. They don't believe it. I've had many people say, oh, there's nothing wrong with your kid that a good spanking wouldn't fix, kind of stuff. And they still say that.
I was just reading an article by somebody, I think, who said that he's a skeptic about ADHD, but he said autism's real. But that you're having discussions like that, and it's 2023. And, this is a PhD, a psychologist talking about that. He's saying ADHD is just something that's overblown and that. But autism is real. But what he said is it's so poorly understood
It is.
that it's just not understood.
People think autism is retarded. That's what the problem is.
Yes.
It-
I totally agree with that.
And I'll be honest.
Often it means at least average intelligence, possibly above average
Oh
in
yeah,
some cases.
super intelligent. But I was guilty of that. I was a sports guy. I played football. I had no idea what was coming my way. And I would be the guy who made those jokes. I'll be honest. And
Well, we
now-
all were.
But now it's
everybody's
like, whoa.
boys and girls.
But
you
it makes
pick
you,
on people.
It makes you realize
Bullying.
what the everyday public think about autism. They don't. If you see a kid walking down the street and he's going, you think, oh, look at this guy,
Right,
but you
yeah.
don't realize that he's just trying to form his words, really.
Right.
Like if you ask a kid a question who's autistic, and then you go, I asked you a question, and you keep asking it, it's just going to start their process over and over and over. You got to give him, I call it the 10-second rule. I
Oh.
give Mike 10 seconds to
Right.
answer
Sometimes it's 20 minutes. I know with my
Sometimes
son.
it's an hour. Yeah, you're right.
I asked my son, this was a long time ago, what do you want for dinner? And a half an hour later, he said macaroni and cheese. And I couldn't think why he was telling me macaroni and cheese for some reason. I was going, oh, right, I asked you what you wanted for dinner. It took him that long to answer my question. And I just kind of went on with, well, we'll figure it out, and I didn't worry about it. And eventually he answered me.
And to see someone like you sitting here, Mike, and just you're so capable, and you fire your words out so quickly. Did you train to do that, or did you get better at it, or?
I got better with it throughout time. It's a learning process for everybody. And I'm happy where I am and my wife now. It's awesome. I have a steady job and whatnot, and some kids don't get that in our life. One prime example that I'm brought to right now, thinking about basketball and whatnot. A kid I idolize who's probably 7 years older than me, from the Syracuse area. Jason McElway. He was a team manager of the Greece Athena basketball team. His coach Jim Johnson only wanted to play in one game, and the one game he played, which was their senior night, he scored 20 points in 4 minutes, and he was holding a job at Wegmans. He won at SB. He got to meet the president, and that's what I was trying to achieve in my moment at Central. I got my own moment, but I was trying to match it, and
Well, you could have hit that three.
yeah. That's what you almost made it. That's
Yeah,
what
but
You
you've been
really
on our
did
show and you've been talking about, you've told about your life and the things that happen.
Yes.
When you're talking, I just remember, I remember, used to have when you said the word Concord, it didn't mean the State House. They had a mental institution up there. And many years, they used to just put kids in there that had developmental disabilities, or even kids in the 40s and 50s that were born illegitimate kids that they just wanted to get rid of. But they started closing it down in the 70s because the union leader did exposés about the horrifying conditions up there. But kids with disabilities, physical or using the word mental, psychological or whatever, were put in this horrible institution where there's no chance of help, no chance of development, no chance at all.
Here's the problem. It's hard to raise a special needs kid. So back in the day, where it wasn't accepted, it was like a hidden.
Right.
It was a secret.
The
People
word
were
was
ashamed.
retarded.
People were ashamed of their kid. They'd send them off, and then they just start over with a new one. Like this happens all the time.
Wasn't the
Literally the movie Rain Man? Like he was so discarded. You know, as a kid, you wonder where all these autistic kids go. Where are the adults? Like you don't really see them out there that often. You see the cute 4-year-olds, but where are the 22-year-olds? I don't even know the answer to that. Do you know the answer?
Oh, my son is 26.
Right.
So, but he got the help that he needed, so he's getting there.
And a lot of them get put away in a secret little
it's hard.
spot.
There's not places for them. There's people that have been working on things like finding ways for them to live more independently. Somebody that used to work at Easter Seals is working on that, but then it's like, where are they going to live? What's going to happen to them? What's going to happen to my son after I'm gone?
Yeah, I know.
And there's not. They might live in like a group home situation.
But sometimes there's not enough beds.
There's not enough. People are on waiting lists for housing. So
how important is it for Miriam? For you are of a person like myself who's traveled and lived in other states. How important is the school district that you live in? Because my oldest sister has 3 special needs kids. She had a special needs kid. She also adopted 2 children, and she had to leave Manchester because she found it was inadequate here. So she went to Amherst, which had a better system. And I actually know 2 people that are paraprofessionals in Amherst. But how important is, when you have a child, is the school district?
I think it can be super important. Although I don't know from one to the next, but I do know
you
that
were in an
certainly
excellent school
we've
system.
We've done well.
Bedford.
We did well with Bedford, and
known for a reputation, one of the better schools. Bedford, Amherst, and Wyndham are like the top 3.
I can tell you right now that Manchester is lacking hardcore. So what our process is, you go to Beach Street School, you meet with the people. There's like 3. There's so many now. There's so many autistic 3-year-olds in Manchester that there's no room. The Smith Road School, there's Weston, I think. There's 2. There's 2 schools that have a preschool program, and that's it. And there's 2 teachers. So for us to go to Ready Set
2
Connect,
teachers, and there's many children.
Many children, like 35 4-year-olds in each class coming into next year. So that's why we're at Ready Set Connect. That's because we can afford to do it.
Oh, so that's a private? You have to come up with your own cash?
It's super expensive to be autistic. It is so
many things
much money to raise an autistic kid. It is, you wouldn't even believe it. From the sensory, and it's big business too. And everybody's, you hear it all the time, sensory. It's big business.
What do you mean, sensory?
Sensory is like
sensory.
Stimming, like
there's a sensory processing. It's like, how do I explain sensory processing?
I'll tell you
like
something about
they get faulty signals from their sensory system. The nervous system is not like somebody
I
who
have-
doesn't have autism, and
Right.
so they'll do things to kind of compensate.
Right.
It might be that flashing lights will bother them. It might be that certain sounds will bother them. You'll see them doing this.
Right,
You'll see
can't
them
take my kid to
going
Dave
like
and Buster's.
this.
You can't. He'll
Yeah.
run around like this because
It's
I
too
did
loud.
it once and I felt so guilty that I would never take him there again because it's like
To where?
who wants to do that to their kid?
To where?
Dave and Buster's.
Yeah, that
It's
would
just
be.
like ding,
we
ding,
never
ding,
went
ding,
to
ding,
Dave and
like,
Buster's.
it's
What
video
is
game.
that?
It's
Oh.
like adult Chuck E. Cheese.
Well, I
Yeah,
am
it's noisy,
I'm
noisy.
childless, so there's.
You love it there.
Probably would. Like,
Just
it's
the
like
noises
Vegas,
and
huh?
flashy lights, and
Yeah.
there was one time I was at a restaurant with my son, and there was a door. Every time it opened, there would be a reflection off of the window,
Oh yeah.
and it would go across his face, and it would go across the wall. And so at some point he was on the chair, he wasn't bothering anybody, curled up in the chair, and this woman was giving him a look, and my husband was going, "Alex, quit." And I'm like, he can't help this.
Right.
Right.
That's
I said,
the first reaction.
because he
too.
can't, he's trying to, I said, maybe we can move his seat, maybe we can do something
It's
else. And this woman
triggering
was just,
something. It's
you know,
triggering something in his brain.
He couldn't cope with that
Yeah.
back and forth, where other people might,
Yeah, you tell
you might
yourself
not notice
it's just
it.
a reflection.
right, you
But for
wouldn't
them,
notice it, but for
yeah.
him it just took over the whole, like nothing else will function because I've got this thing, flashing in
Right.
my
It's
face.
triggering him.
Like
Right.
you overcame this stuff, or was it just not really on your radar?
Or
Or you didn't have that problem.
I think I did. I think I did have that problem, but I was able to overcome it and
Awesome.
improve and move on. And I had great teachers throughout school that helped me along the way. Mrs. Perkins, Mrs. Boyle, and yeah, Manchester is not up to par. And this is completely through public school. I went to. I think I went to preschool at Easters Hill, but other than that,
Right,
other
Easters
than that, I was through the public system the entire way, and yeah, this is. I graduated high school 10 years ago. This year, has it improved since then? Yes, but like you were saying, Gonzo, it's like when you have a young child like you do, you have two kids, and now to see if. Yeah, some people can afford it, but some people can't, and it's just frustrating sometimes to see what
Yeah.
parents like you that are dealing with this, and like you have a good hand, you're having a good handle on it right now, but some parents aren't that fortunate or don't care enough sometimes.
Most parents lie about how they're handling it too.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say that necessarily, because sometimes a parent will be very worried about a kid and they'll go to the doctor, and then the doctor will say, well, I don't see anything wrong. I think you're overblowing this or whatever. So they get a little bit of sort
Because
of
they
medical,
don't have the exposure. They're only
right, the
seeing
medical
15 minutes.
gaslighting that happens
Yeah.
occasionally.
Have dinner with my kid then. Like spend
Right,
5 hours
right.
with him,
If
and
you
then you'll realize
Pay
that
attention
he's
to
not
these things.
there.
So it
yeah.
could be the doctor, it could be the parents, it could be one parent isn't on board and the other parent is on board. I mean, there's so
It's
many
85% divorce rate for parents with special needs kids. 85%.
I've heard that. I know that
Yes.
people that have special
That
needs,
is
yeah,
high
that
number.
it's very hard to deal with, particularly if one parent denies it or isolates themselves
It's
from
usually the father.
it. Right.
And
They
most
don't.
autistic kids are boys. So like think about that dynamic.
Is that true?
It really is. Yeah.
Most autistic kids are boys.
That is definitely the statistic, although it looks different in girls, so it's harder sometimes, I think, to get the diagnosis in a girl. But
There could be a genetic component.
When you
though,
find out
know,
you're
There
the
is,
having-
I'm
Y
pretty
chro-
sure.
the Y
When
chromosome.
you find out you're having a boy, though, a lot of fathers go and buy that football. They buy that
they're
glove.
all set for
Oh, yeah,
They're
everybody-
ready.
you kind of are ready for
So
them
they-
to be a
Boys are
particular
privileged.
It's
way.
hard for fathers to initially take the news. It's a shot to the pride almost. It really is. It's a hard
Right, you
subject.
kind of have an expectation of
But
what
then
being
you
a father
lean
is.
on. She's been.
You're also
a-
older when you had your children. You were in
she's
your
been-
40s.
Yes,
You have more experience. It's a lot of guys in their
Less
20s.
energy, though.
Yeah, that's true. But one of the things I noticed going through life is that when guys are married, when you marry like your college or high
You're
school
ignorant.
sweetheart,
Yeah,
you're the same age, and the father will start competing with the kid because the mother, when a woman is a mother, she's going to pay attention to a kid. And when you're in your 20s, you want. You're looking for your mother in many ways. So, like a lot of people I know, my brother, they had their kids in their 40s. They just didn't have that dynamic, right? They're a little older.
Yeah, we were a little older when we had our kids too.
But
older.
when I came to that decision that, get over this and move on for the bet.
Yeah, many men are big babies.
I leaned on you for a minute. Like I have other
so you
friends.
talked about this.
Yes, she's been a very big support system for me. This is all under the radar. I never talk about this stuff because it's like
you talked to me about it once.
nobody really
hard
wants
to talk about,
No
yeah.
one really wants to hear it, and it's like they don't know. They have no freaking clue what it's like. Would you agree on that?
Oh my gosh.
What is the
Like, I
dead
just
times is
like,
sometimes
what are you
it's
talking
3
about
in the morning.
bedtimes? Right,
It's
right.
like they don't. It's
And
not
they say,
anything people understand.
people would say to me, he'll eat what you want him to. Don't give him the stuff that he wants. Give him the vegetables.
He's not going to eat.
He's not going to starve himself, they said. Well,
yeah.
I followed that advice. He starved himself, and the doctor said, for God's sake, give him ice cream.
For anything.
If you have to. Anything to get calories in him.
If he
because
eats
he was
M&Ms,
like
I'm
on a
happy,
keto diet. Like he was
honestly.
in that ketosis
Oh,
because
geez.
he wasn't eating.
Yeah.
It's not they're not making the decision not to be stubborn. They're just not going to eat
Like
that.
it's a sense, again, it's a sensory thing. It doesn't feel right in the mouth. They choke on it, they gag on it, whatever. So it's chicken nuggets and,
At
French
2 in
fries
the
and
morning,
pizza.
almost every night, I have to go and run around the backyard and yell nighttime and look at the moon with my son. This is a routine, or it's on, or it's just nightmare city. So I go, I
You mean
do
he
it.
has nightmares?
No,
That is
it's
it.
a nightmare
it's
for
nightmare
me.
for you.
Yeah, and we have a little girl, so it's like we're not trying to like disrupt everything. So every night we go out and he yells nighttime and he looks at the moon and it's beautiful, but it's like a routine now. And if he doesn't do it, he just will scream at the door. Like this is a sweet kid,
Yeah.
but man, can he turn unsweet sometimes?
Yeah, I know.
And these are the things that people don't talk about ever. And it's nice that like, we're talking about it. Like Carol Robideau had someone's doing a piece in the, the Ink Link, 1 in 36. It's called. It's just being a parent of an autistic kid. It's almost like if you don't get patience from this, I don't know what. Like if I get out of this alive, I'm gonna be a better man for sure. I don't know how I couldn't be. And then sometimes you just want to just scream, really.
You just want to scream or run
And
away,
that's
or
why
you just
it's
like
so
give
important to have
me
people
a
like
break.
you, honestly, and other
Well,
parents.
I'm glad
No,
I
it
could
really
be there
is. It really is to hear.
because it is so hard.
To hear you're not the only one dealing with it.
What would life be like without programs that come into? I remember when I was the president of my student government at Boston University when they passed the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, which I think snuck in with Jimmy Carter, but it might have been during the Reagan era, because as much as Reagan was a conservative, actually on some issues, because of his staff, were more moderate. And that had support from Republicans too.
What would life be like?
But the ADA did not exist till the 1980s, which means the case law didn't develop until like the 90s and the first part of this millennium.
Life would be like this.
Yeah,
Every beautiful kid would be swept under the rug,
swept under the rug.
and unheard of ever again.
And they are beautiful kids.
And you'd never know. Hey, Jimmy had a kid. Where'd he go? Oh, he's in a thing. He's up in Concord, is what you'd hear. If there's no programs, they'd all be and it would become the norm. It would become the next step.
Well, one thing we can look at history, the Kennedy family. Rosemary Kennedy was one of the sisters of Jack Kennedy's generation. Had mental disabilities. and they had her lobotomized because that in the 20s, early 30s, that was recommended. The
It's like go
physician that
to a
created
dog,
the
honestly.
lobotomy, what they call lobotomy, won the Nobel Prize. But
You look at Robert De Niro just came out that he has an adult autistic child.
oh,
He hid. People were hiding the
But-
fact that they had this problem. They had this issue.
yeah, but the Kennedys they created the Special Olympics and that of the
Right, I was thinking
JFK's
that's
generation
where we were going.
because
Sorry.
the stigma of somebody, they were called when I was mentally retarded, and people were called retards and stuff. But
Right.
mental retardation, they just started the campaign. That was part of Lyndon Johnson too, the Great Society, to try to help this. Like my parents' generation. But my father was a highly intelligent person, at 160 IQ. They got that and everything, but he could not understand dyslexia because my brother had it worse than me. And to him, that my brother Guy had trouble reading. He's just lazy, or he wouldn't wear his glasses. And we had a congregational minister. This was Connecticut, a rich bitch part of Connecticut. He would try to explain to my father, but he was just enculturated in a different generation, That and he was very liberal and everything, but he was this Anglo-Saxon Protestant. You couldn't overcome anything because he did overcome. He had asthma, which was fatal in the 20s and 30s, and but he couldn't understand dyslexia, and so people just didn't understand certain things because people still don't understand autism. I think today.
They don't,
No,
but
they really
they
don't.
better get used to it because it's only
So
getting
much-
more
it's like-
prevalent.
Yeah.
And one
It's gonna
thing,
be in 2 generations. It'll be 1 out of 10.
well, they're also
It's
saying
just growing and growing in numbers. It's
I was,
not. It's not because you weren't aware of it. Everyone says, "Oh, they just
people
did it."
are aware of it. I've heard about it.
No,
since the
people
80s.
say, "Oh, it's always been the same numbers," but people just didn't get diagnosed. If your kid is not right.
That's an issue that we
You
only have a
know.
few more minutes.
You can't.
Let's do another show about this.
Okay.
Time went by, but because it went places, we didn't get to the stuff about paraprofessionals.
Well, we need paraprofessional stuff. We really
Right,
do.
for
That's
sure.
part of the problem, is that there's just not enough of us.
Right.
So-
And Bedford is hiring paraprofessionals.
Bedford is hiring. It's a wonderful job.
It's a
Well,
high
I love it.
turnover too, isn't
but
it?
It is a
Oh,
it
here
is
we
a high
have-
turnover. I'll be
Yeah.
in it for a long time. I've been doing
Yeah,
it for
'cause you have a
about
purpose
4
and a
years.
cause.
And I feel like every one of these kids
Thank you, Brendan.
is kind of representative of my kid. Like, I feel
Right.
for the parents, I
Right.
feel for the kid, I see it from the other perspective, and I think that's
Some
part of it.
some of these these beautiful people that get into the profession have no clue what they're getting into, and they're like, "Well, I tried to do the right thing," but unless you're
It's very difficult.
unless you have a reason to stick with it like you do, it's hard to stick with it.
But you also have to have the support of your district
Mhm.
and of the people. Because I've sat at board of a mayor and alderman meeting, and my sister wasn't the only person that had problems with special needs kids with this district. And there are some people that even have IEDs, and in Manchester, they're not being fulfilled. And what happens to that? Because that means extra federal
Money.
and state money. But where does it going?
Right.
But that's a separate issue
That is
for
a separate issue,
show.
and there is a whole show
But
on
I
that.
have sat in front of the board of mayor and aldermen and had parents come up and talk to this issue. But I would, I can't say that I know what that
Glad
led
you said that.
to.
Unless you know, you don't know. It
This is
really
something we should
so
focus
simple.
on.
It's so simplified by saying, unless you know, you don't know. And I didn't know, but now I know.
Right, it's probably something you don't want to,
Mhm.
you don't think is going to happen to you.
No, but
and then there it is.
there it is. Deal with it.
And then you have to weed through everything, and all these different things that people say, oh, you need to do this, you need to do this, oh, you should never give them this kind of water, or you should never feed them this kind of
Oh,
food, or kind of
everyone's
Did
an
you
expert
have
in
my
that.
mother and father both were born in about 1926, so it's like the advice,
Mercury,
they were
Mercury,
brought up by
Mercury.
people from Victorian age. My mother's mother was born 1886. And so it's like, to say that their empathy for
I like it when my
it's not that they don't love or they don't have empathy, it's just they don't understand. And they were enculturated, in a quite different era, it's like I remember being raised in the 60s. You ate what was put in front of you. Except my brother wouldn't, but he lived on cheese doodles and hot dogs.
I like when people are like, "Hey, bring your kid. Oh, they're having a thing. Bring Micah." And I'm like, oh, silly boy.
And then they say, you really shouldn't be such a helicopter parent. And then 10 seconds later, your kid
Right.
does a thing, and then they say, why are you not watching your kid?
Yeah, bless your soul. Invite my kid to a birthday party. Haha. Like, you take him, and then you kind of like
He coulda
slip
come
out
to
the
mine.
door. You slip out the door because you know he might slap someone in the face by accident.
I'll tell you one thing.
Mine would run down the street towards the railroad tracks,
Yeah.
just
One
Off
problem
we go.
about being short, because I'm only 5'4", when you're dating a woman with like a kid with special needs, like you're talking about probably autism, and then sometimes you got to hold the kid in your lap because he's ready to like rip everything apart. But then suddenly like his father was 6'4", so the kid's taller than you. So I guess it's time to go before he whips your ass.
Well, that's
it
how
never happened, but it's something you're thinking about because suddenly the kid's as big as you and you're
That's
older.
why early intervention is huge.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You do not want an 11-year-old aggressive 6-foot kid. You get that out of the way at 4. Take the slaps at 4 instead of 11.
It's made a difference.
That's
in my
what it's
life.
all about.
It really
you
is
get those
huge.
slaps in at 4 instead of 11.
Because
That's the
boys
whole.
get I was always
In a
strong
nutshell.
before my back really degenerated.
Well, you're just
Boys
undateable,
get
John.
strong, particularly as they're heading towards 12 and 13 years old.
Oh my God, John! I could just
Yeah.
see that throwing you around.
Well, he didn't. And, everything worked out eventually because he had a wonderful mother, but I didn't know how to deal with it.
It's hard. Imagine being, dad.
Yeah.
So, I think the more people that get together, the peers, people who know, it's like, Vietnam veterans who can only talk to each other because they only know.
Right. Well, let's have, we got to sign off. I'll let Mikey sign off, but let's do some more shows about this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mikey, sign us off.
Thank you for tuning in for Ward 13 with John Hopwood. Until next week, see you then.
Bye.